Smart 24, driving business.
A very good morning to you. How have you been? It's been quite a bumpy ride for some, but this is also another hectic day as well for others. Today, the 16th Monday of September 2024. It's always a delight for you to join me, Kem Chadorin, here at Smart Means Business. We're live, Smart 24 TV. It's always a delight to have you on a Monday. Now remember, you can still get us on all the social media pages. You can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Facebook, as well as X. Find us there as Smart 24 TV Official and Smart 24 TV as one word. It's always a delight to have your different opinions, letting us know what is happening within your community. Now, as we do it here, of course, at Smart 24 TV, here every morning from 7 to right about 9. And then from 9 to 10, we give you business insight. We get you a guest or two to come in and talk to us and give us a little bit of insight on pertinent issues happening all over the world, as well as Uganda here. So this is how it goes from Monday to Friday. Please let us know about what you think about some of the topics that we do have here. We would want to know what you think about them. Is it plausible? Is it rational? What is your opinion in regards to some of these? It's always a delight. And we always encourage you as well from 9 to 10. Please let us know. You can send in your inquiry. We do have our guests coming 9 to 10. We will be talking about still the performance of agricultural loans in Uganda, agriculture financing, really. It is more or less a part 2 of what was an insight in last week. And right now we take it on analyzing, looking at an analysis really of the performance of agriculture financing in Uganda. Now let us know, of course, what your inquiry is, and we would love as well to know your experience. Has it happened to you? Have you tried to reach out to the partnering financial institutions? Have you been turned down, or you just didn't have the requirements that they asked for? Do you think there are too many requirements to be able to access? Is it workable as well in Uganda? Let us know what your opinion is. Get onto X, get onto Facebook, as well as YouTube, and give us a comment. From 9 to 10 today, we will be talking about that. We will have a guest join us here on Smart 24 TV on set, and of course give us insight on what is happening. Right about now, just as we get into it and of course get you the regional news as well as the international news coming in a little bit later, and then we'll have our dose of inspiration at the top of the hour, where we will have that dose, the business quotes coming in from different seasoned personalities. What is their take on life, and what is your take on life this Monday? Of course, there's been quite a jam around town. Schools are reopening, and of course, most parents will tell you right about this time that the pockets are much slimmer, and there is quite a lot of headaches. In fact, someone brought it out a little bit funnily and said that different versions of headache, and if you have a migraine, it attacks you at the front of the head. If you have malaria or another sort of disease, it comes in at the back of your head as a headache. But when it is coming down to school fees headache, then your entire head is enveloped in pain. What is happening your side? Is it exorbitant? We did have, of course, some officials come out and say, can there be a ceiling? Can there be a school fees cap, the tuition cap? But of course, you did have a couple of other administrators, school administrators, especially from the private sector, say that it is impossible to have a ceiling. What they do is whatever amount of tuition is put there within their particular private schools, most of it is rationally thought through, and it comes down because most times they have to get the bank loans, and then they have to really put in place a couple of different services and products that the parents really ask for. So you did have quite some ping pong when it came to that, and whether the price, the tuition ceiling can actually work in Uganda, especially in regards to the private schools. You did have quite a number of parents come out and say it was exorbitant, especially in the wake of the pandemic. During that time, you did have quite a number of schools, almost triple the amount of tuition, and unfortunately it has stayed on the higher side. What are parents saying? Now we will have a look at that all throughout until around 9 o'clock, just about welcoming this time as most of the schools are reopening. Actually, most started in last week, and right now we've got to see a couple of kids, more kids actually, carrying their brooms and whatever it is. But right about now, let's just dive straight into the press review and find out what is in the papers right now. And here we go. Term 3 coming in your new vision. Term 3 school grants delayed over ghosts. Some news coming in there. The ghosts are still a wall running around the school compounds, and unfortunately, they are being, fortunately or unfortunately, whereas they cannot be seen, they are still hunted for. Well, this comes in with government holds capitation grants over ghost learners. It is unusual for the government to delay the release of capitation grants to schools ahead of the reopening of a new term. Under normal circumstances, the funds are released before the school terms opens, but there has been a delay. It is not business as usual when it comes down to this. And you did find, of course, the workers when it comes to public service, ghost workers, and right now you do have the ghost students as well. As third term starts today, schools under UPE and USE will wait a little bit longer to access their capitation grants. This is now going to be some headache when it comes to the school, the running of the schools and all this, and we should be able to really give them a little bit of support here wherever your children go to school. The celebration served as a platform, of course, coming in to pay tribute to the president's leadership. President Museveni yesterday celebrated his 80th birthday with a call to leaders to stand firm against land grabbing. The president blamed persistence of land grabbing in some parts of the country to weak leadership, saying the current laws in the country, including the Constitution, have strong safeguards, but it was surprised that some people continue to cry over land grabbing. Happy belated to our leader. And then, of course, we still have, for those of you who have been following the Katanga trial, defense lawyers quiz police expert on mixed DNA samples. This has taken on quite a while, and they're down to detail, of course, down to details with quite a lot of findings still coming in regards to that. Get your new vision and you will find out more. Missions to market Uganda's products. This has been on the hype for quite a while. It still is on. There is quite a lot that is being put out there. Uganda scoops award at China Tourism Export. You have Uganda has won the Best Organization Prize for showcasing its tourism potential at the China International Tourism Expo 2024. You have quite a number of Ugandans that are really pushing this out. We did mention, I think, a couple of months back about those that made it well, a group of women that made it well at one of the forums in Canada, and really came out they were quite impressive. And you did have quite some feedback. And one of the notable feedback that came out that the women leaders got to know and brought back home was the need to change the packaging. The packaging when it comes to agribusiness, they said a lot has to be done. And the cry, of course, that was coming out from this group of women who participated during that time was that it was quite costly to have top quality packaging in Uganda, and something has to be done about it, especially in regards to agribusiness when it comes down to that. KCCA orders boda stages off non-motorized corridor. This is like a cat and dog sort of thing. It keeps coming up. However, City Boda cyclists blamed the mess of the non-motorized transport corridors on the KCCA enforcement for being lax. And Saeed Chirumira, an information secretary for one of the Boda associations, said removing the Boda riders from the NMT corridor can take less than an hour. Boda riders cannot frustrate government programs when KCCA enforcement is in place. So they throw it back into their docket and say, it can't even take an hour. So it is up to you, do your part, and everything will come back organized. We are coming and we are growing Uganda's export earnings. This was said by Audric Rabogo. Coming in, many people complain about broken politics in Uganda, but what should concern our citizens is the destruction of the very fiber from which those who lead come, integrity. And we have heard that right here, talking about integrity coming through. Permanent Secretary asks LCs to monitor PDM. You still have that going on. The Permanent Secretary in the Office of the President, Haji Yunus Kakande, has appealed to local government officials to actively get involved in the supervision of PDM projects in the areas. He said the government has injected a lot of funds in PDM with the aim of transforming Ugandans, but unscrupulous officials are letting the government down. Now remember, it started off with quite some hype. It was mixed feelings. You did have some government officials getting back into the same standard and saying, oh, it's okay. But of course, coming down to it, with all those being thrown behind bars, no wonder. It does come in. You'd have quite a number that don't want to deal with it, and the others that are quite cautious, overly cautious, due to the different systems that have been going on. Get your new vision and find out. But just to give you just a little bit of a hint into the Daily Monitor, you do have third-term headaches for students and parents. Of course, you do have that, the school reopening stories coming in. Aga Khan Foundation launches Urban Microforest campaign. Pomp as Museveni marks 80th birthday, and then Justice Latu dedicated life to family and to journalism. May his soul rest in peace. How Greater Kampala will share 2 trillion projects. You have, of course, the World Bank coming in there and to aid, and local government, KCCA, breaking it down, and of course, trying to say, and these monies really have to be followed up on, because the reality is if they aren't followed up on, then you have all these gaps, the norm, the business as usual coming back into play. Lack of incinerators in health centers, a ticking time bomb. Remember, this has been coming. We talked about it sometime last year, and talked about the health hazards that come, of course, in play with waste management. And now talking about waste management in the wake of the Chitezi issue, looking back at the presence or the absence therein of incinerators in Uganda. What can be done about it, and what is the implication really, not only or just on the health system, but as well on the environmental as well as other particular areas. This is something that is still there. The dangers of taking too much soda. Please get your new vision, get your Daily Monitor, and go through this and find out what is in the press. It could be just something that you don't have any idea about. Please get the papers. Let's take a short break, and we will be right back with more.
Smart 24, driving business. Get
all the football on DSTV Cutback for only 110,000 shillings per month.
Blue magic is my joy. Blue magic, Talaba kumabala atukuza nonyirirawo kirako enyange tayisa bubi faburiki kyonna kyekiri kiggwa lwa Blue magic is my choice. Ono Blue magic ye wange and Blue magic is my choice. Hey, ono Blue magic ye wange.
Tuli wano leero ku Divine College Wakiso okutuusa obweyamu ew'omuwanguzi waffe owa school fees kubanga abadde akozesa Pay with Momo okusasula school fees za mwana we era awangudde school fees za term 3.
Nze nkolera Kagadi naye ekinnyanguyira okukozesa MTN Momo olw'okubanga transport okuva Kagadi okujja ero Kampala $6,000 nga nyiga *165 *8 asi nakozesa MTN Momo nga balance yali asigaddeyo ne musasula. Kaakati nange nafuuse omuwanguzi mu MTN Momo. Ndi musanyufu nnyo abe MTN otuddiza. Bazadde bannange mbakubiriza okozesa MTN Momo kubanga MTN yesigika, MTN mazima wanvu.
Together, we're unstoppable.
Are you a woman entrepreneur or a woman owning a business and looking for affordable financing to scale up your business? Look no further than the Grow Loan. Grow Loan targets female entrepreneurs nationwide. Key features include a minimum loan amount of 4 million and a maximum loan amount of 200 million shillings, a maximum interest rate not exceeding 10.5% per annum, a loan repayment period not exceeding 24 months. All Grow Loan borrowers must comply with the Grow Project environmental and social standards. Special incentives are available for borrowers that are refugees or from the refugee host communities, people living with disabilities, and women entrepreneurs from the underserved or minority groups. To apply, contact any of the 6 participating financial institutions. Contact us for more information or visit our website at www.grow.go.ug. The Grow Loan is an intervention under the Grow Project, a Government of Uganda project financed by the World Bank and implemented by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development and the Private Sector Foundation Uganda. Grow, generating growth opportunities and productivity for women enterprises.
Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome back from the break. Let's dive straight into regional news. Karibu, East Africa, where we give you the latest regional news happening right within this region. You should have your eyes really on what is happening just about the corner or within your own country. Let's come in with a couple of reasons as to why there has been poor uptake, accounting hitches bogging down Uganda's tax amnesty initiative. And coming in there has been limited uptake among taxpayers, accounting hurdles and low impact on revenue collections, which are hampering Uganda's tax amnesty program, now running within its second year. Uganda's tax amnesty initially expired on December 31st, 2023, but was pushed to December 31st this year after a strike by the Kampala city traders over the implementation of IFRIS for filing value-added tax returns. Under this program, those with outstanding tax bills can seek relief for a portion of their obligations. Now, accounting glitches as well are faced by taxpayers, and this poses one of the biggest threats to the programs. According to Trevor Lukanga, Associate Director at PwC Uganda, the tax amnesty was extended partly because of the poor response registered last year. But the underlying tax ledger reconciliation problems have not gone away. For example, a taxpayer may have a total tax liability of 16 million, inclusive of interest and penalties. The principal tax bill may be 10 million, and they may choose to take up the tax amnesty and pay the 10 million, while the balance in interest and penalties is waived. However, he says a payer will check their tax ledger later on and find an outstanding bill of 3 million, of 2 to 3 million. It could be that URA uses the payment of principal tax bills to clear outstanding balances in certain tax heads instead of the overall tax bill arrived at during reconciliation. Such a situation does not make sense, and of course they intend to write to URA seeking clarity on this matter, because out of 200 clients on their register, less than half have actually taken up the tax amnesty offer. They have encouraged other clients to take up the tax amnesty offer because it may help avoid certain financial disasters that lie ahead. Clients who undergo tax compliance reviews done by URA auditors every 3 months are less likely to see benefits in a tax amnesty. But those who undergo URA tax audits every 3 years may realize more value in the tax amnesty window due to lower compliance levels. We have experienced technical issues in the processing of pursuing tax amnesty benefits for our clients, but those hurdles have slightly reduced this year. This was said by Muhammad Sempija, tax partner at Ernst and Young. The policy justification for the tax amnesty program is anchored on the fallout brought by COVID-19 lockdowns on several sectors, a scenario that left many businesses still struggling almost 2 years later. And of course, around 1,000 businesses were forced to shut down during the lockdown, while 600,000 jobs were lost in the Kampala city metropolitan area only during the first 3 months of the COVID-19. Now, the value of restructured loans in Uganda's banking industry arising from the lockdown disruptions amounted to around 7.7 trillion by the end of 2020, as said by Bank of Uganda data. Now, we of course have been reporting here at Smart 24 Business about the fact that as seemingly as it may be that there is a hustle and bustle downtown, the reality about it is that not so many businesses have been able to pick back and get back onto their feet as was expected. And you do have, of course, URA coming and saying we are going to ensure that we, according to their own different projections, and of course widening the tax base and all this. And this is where the traders come in and say, but where are you going to get these monies? We have had and consistently continue to have this conversation right here. And this is why, even in the week this is a Monday, of course, the 16th of 2024. But remember, you could be able to find this conversation that we had last week when we hosted Mr. Katongole from Kasita to give us a little bit on insight about the investment arena in Uganda when it comes, of course, to particular strategies such as having Chinatown that recently brought in quite a lot of an uproar. And what about protectionism, the need to protect the Ugandan, the local business person in Uganda who is trying to get back onto their feet. And of course, right in the wake of that conversation that we shall still be looking at within this particular week, coming down to the China-Uganda cooperation. And what is the level of investment? What is the scoop when it comes down to the policy that was being highlighted by looking at the revising of it by Siatini and a couple of other key players? These are pertinent issues that we get to talk about here at Smart 24 TV. Please, if you did miss out on that particular conversation, you can as well find it coming in on YouTube. You can find us there as Smart 24 TV Official or Smart 24 TV as one word. Find us there on YouTube, X, as well as Facebook. Now let's dive straight into some news that may tickle a couple of others. ESC boss Veronica Nduva pushes bloc to open skies to ease travel course, as we are diving into the end of the year, you do have quite a number of Ugandans who have saved their little monies and are planning to travel and make sure that they have some good time. Well, what is in the offing? The push to reduce the cost of air transport within East Africa has gained more momentum, with the East African community submitting regulations to support liberalization of air transport. The regulations are highlighting how to leverage airfare, parking fees and other levies charged by airlines are to be submitted to the 19th meeting of the Sectoral Council on Transport Communication, and which is also TCM, for adoption next month. East African Airlines, Kenya Airways, Uganda Airlines, Air Tanzania and Rwandair sometimes charge fares as high as $800 for a return ticket between Kigali and Zanzibar. This should be far less. This month, a ticket between Kigali and Zanzibar was $380 for a one-way flight and $562 for a round trip. The proposed guidelines were meant to reduce airfares, save time on connecting flights, and ease movement of people and cargo within the region. The East African Secretary General Veronica Nduva mentioned that once approved, these air transport services in the region will be liberalized, and the partner states will subsequently be negotiating under multilateral air service agreements. Within an open space regime in place, African countries have been relying on bilateral air service agreements, presenting the challenges of multiple negotiations with several countries. But the liberalization of air transport operations in the region is expected to lower fares, improve connectivity, stimulate demand for air travel and cargo, and eventually support the expansion of air transport capacities in the region. This was said by Nduva. The private sector in East Africa has raised concerns that it takes more than 24 hours to connect between the capitals of East Africa community partner states, the same duration one would take to fly from Australia. We do hope that this will be rectified as soon as possible. And in 2015, it was requested by the heads of state to present a study on the opening of the skies, but 10 years later, it is still being discussed. Liberalization would open up new routes and more frequencies that would eventually shorten the flying time between cities. Part of the reason air travel is expensive and cumbersome within the EAC and the rest of the African countries is the failure of countries to ratify and implement the African Union's Single African Air Transport Market, SATIM. SATIM, which is a flagship project of the AU Agenda 2063, is meant to create a single air transport market in Africa to advance the liberalization of civil aviation on the continent. The SATIM was created to expedite the full implementation of the Yamoussoukro decision, which provides for the liberalization of scheduled and non-scheduled air transport services within Africa and aims at removing restrictions on traffic rights, capacity, and frequency between city pairs. Now, if this goes, of course, into play, we should have a couple of good news coming in from those who have had their little monies put on the side. You do have quite a number of, and we were talking about this, you do have quite a number of Ugandans who are right about now getting uppity and a little bit more into travel. And we're talking about travel on the African continent and off the African continent. You do have these flyers going around, quite viral, about a number that come together. We did have insight here, right here on Smart Means Business, where we talked about, of course, the improvement in domestic tourism in Uganda. Quite a number of adventurous Ugandans who are really, really craving. Of course, when it comes down to the age, demographics, all that, it really shows that the younger ones, the youth, are the ones who are taking it up and really raising the flag when it comes to domestic tourism. But of course, you do have quite a number as well of different Ugandans really look out more into getting out there, into Kenya particularly, looking at Zanzibar. Zanzibar is also another area, Dubai coming in, of course, as well. But you do have an increase in this. Now, if at all this single posited regulation was put in place, and this open skies it would definitely make flying cheaper, and more Ugandans would be able to travel and see some of these places. Let's get straight into international news and give you the latest there. Coming in international news, the EU pledges $35 million to South Africa for buying or for green hydrogen plants. The European Union pledged to give South Africa 2 grants worth $35 million to accelerate its green hydrogen plants. Now, green hydrogen plants projects use renewable energy to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, making fuel that can be used across industries such as transport, petrochemicals, and steel. The first EU grant worth 140 million rand is helping struggling South African state company Transnet with infrastructure costs, supporting railways, ports, pipelines, and other logistics. The other grant for 25 million euros will help Africa's most industrialized economy develop its green hydrogen value chain. Now, green hydrogen is seen as critical to decarbonization efforts in South Africa and Europe. European countries have been investing in green hydrogen projects across Africa to secure future supplies of the fuel. Those 2 European Union grants will be implemented in a way so that they can contribute to South Africa's strategic objectives. This was said by Simpson, the European Commissioner for Energy, who recently mentioned and was giving some clarity about the 2 European Union grants. In some more news, of course, when it comes down, of course, to South Africa, we did mention here at Smart Means Business here, live on Smart 24 TV, we did mention about the couple of restructuring that was going on, especially in regards to curbing down corruption in Uganda. South Africa has faced quite a lot of really resource misallocation when it comes down to the energy sector. And they did have quite an uproar coming in, especially in regards to the electricity shutdowns. You did have the blackouts that were putting many industries and so many homes down in uproar, saying, how does this happen over and over and over again, year in, year out? There was, of course, some tension with different industries really saying that the cost was now so high due to the power blackouts. But of course, coming in as well, they are looking at, you did have in the wake, during during the forum that we did bring to you about the Africa-China cooperation coming in, you did have the South African president come out and really reaffirm and say, contrary to what some of the others may think about pulling back in their cooperation, when it comes to South Africa, they are looking at having more partnership, especially in regards to renewable energy, and looking at the fact that China, despite what others may be talking about, that China is not there to exploit them. This was from words coming in, reaffirming, coming in from the South African president in regards to that. Of course, most of the African countries, when it comes to Chinese cooperation, are really looking at how do we increase our exports to China? How do we tap into the very high population of China? Because when it comes to that, there's still quite a lot of imbalances, trade imbalances, with so many African countries really importing quite a lot, quite a lot, rather than exporting. And then you did have, of course, our feature story coming in the other week, 2 weeks back here, talking about how 80% of avocado exports had been slashed by Kenya to China. And of course, Kenya looking at other particular virgin territories, especially the European market, in which it can boost some of its avocado exports. But of course, looking at that, coming down about it is a potential for renewable energy, and who else better to come in for that? But we also flipped the coin a little bit and looked at the fact that with China facing quite a lot of wrath about the electrical vehicles coming in from Canada, the US, as well as the European Union on its own turf there. And of course, these three key players saying they do not want really more or less a dumping and a monopoly of China. You do have, of course, Chinese companies, the China redeveloping another strategy to look at how best can they ensure that some of their electric vehicles and some of their electric geared equipment gets down to other partner countries, especially those under the on the African continent. A lot has been pushed for. But of course, looking at the imbalances, it is more or less important and vital right now for African leaders to ensure that their interests are pushed forward. Now, of course, still is some international news coming in here. China proposes negotiations with EU to resolve electric vehicle tariff dispute. It is not all lost, and China has renewed its offer for talks with the European Commission to address economic and trade frictions to try to ease impending punitive tariffs on China-made electric vehicles. During a meeting with the European Commission's Director General for Trade, Vice Commerce Minister Li Fei said China was willing to engage in dialogue and consultations, his ministry said in a statement. The meeting took place and the EU was expected to lower its proposed final tariffs on Tesla and slightly reduce rates for other Chinese electric vehicles. The ministry emphasized that the issue of countervailing subsidies for Chinese electric vehicles was complex and presented significant challenges for reaching an agreement. China is willing to continue to work closely with the European side to reach a solution that meets the common interests of both sides and is in line with the WTO rules, so as to promote the healthy and stable development of China-EU economic and trade relations. This was said in a ministry statement. Now, China's renewed negotiations efforts come as it seeks to overturn proposed duties on its electric vehicles, and China indicated a willingness to ease tensions by refraining from imposing provisional anti-dumping measures on EU brandy. Now, as it is almost it's sort of like a ping pong, and more or less battle of the elephants, because when it comes down, we mentioned this, it's very interesting. We're following this up keenly and trying to see what strategy China puts in place. And of course, when you flip the coin, we are very mindful as well about the implications to African countries, particularly Uganda, the East African community and Uganda. And of course, we did mention as well during that time, I think it was last week, in between during the week, and we mentioned that Kenya had actually improved its quite almost tripled the number of electric cars, and you did have, of course, a couple of incentives being put in place. Now we crossed over, came back to Uganda as we normally do right here on Smart 24 Business, and try to look at what different measures have we been able to be particular and follow up. Uganda has been known, of course, and we normally critique this, Uganda has been known for having some of the best policies, for being able to have those dreams put on paper quite eloquently, but when it comes to implementation, there are quite a number of gaps, and this is where we lose out. So we were tracking with Kenya tripling its electric vehicle usage, the uptake coming in quite handy, and all these different incentives being put in place. Where is it happening in Uganda? Because right now, as we are saying, we came off quite well with Kira Motors and the production. And of course, you did even have different key officials coming out and projecting, giving a forecast and saying that within the next couple of months, we should be able to reap quite from this. But we are seeing a number of different East African, countries within the EAC actually begin to overtake, not only just in the uptake, but it is in the quick incentives, the quick return on investment, the quick adoption of some of these, whereas we are still going a little bit cautiously. Yes, we may highlight these wonderful strides, but how quick is that moving on? You could have maybe 50 cars, and of course the different, we do not come out of course, negating the efforts that have been made here in Uganda, but we are saying that with every milestone reached, there has to be that quickness about it, because you do have other East African community countries that are really cashing in on electric vehicles and the brand, and seeing how to benefit immensely from this. So we need to up it up. We need to up it up as Uganda and see how to benefit from this, and not have countries, our immediate neighbors such as Kenya, beat us on this. Now, getting back, of course, we are still here looking keenly at the different strategies that China is still putting in place. We did mention, remember, during the forum at the beginning, just as the forum was just about to start, the China-Africa Forum Summit that was held recently, and we did mention that, giving back just a little bit of backtrack and recapping, we did mention that within the last couple of years, whenever this summit would be there, it would be all over and it would catch fire. But of course, we did have just a cautiousness, a pulling back of China in regards to the investment, and looking more or less at one footstep in front, one beautiful footstep, and of course coining these different words, just smaller projects, but beautiful projects that are meant to trickle down. And of course, you did have more or less a cautious pullback away from just most infrastructure, the roads, and more or less looking at particular areas such as renewable energy. That has been its fixation, really, the renewable energy. Now, you did, of course, have other critics come out and say that a lot had been pledged by China within the last couple of years, but with the tracking, not much tracking had been made to ensure that some of these pledges that had been made actually were realized. And of course, when it comes to the quantification of these so-called monies that were released by China, did they actually quantify into results, in particular results that are measurable? There seems to be a gap in regards to some of these pledges that China has been making to the African continent. And of course, it did come out and make some more pledges, but you do have a little bit of, it's not business as usual when it comes down to African countries, and most of the African leaders as well were saying, let's first deal with this trade imbalance. As you bring in, everywhere you go right now, you could have a Chinese good. We could be putting on Chinese goods or Chinese manufactured goods and using them and eating from them and all that. But the reality about it is you're looking at more and more African countries tapping into other markets, not only just the EAC solidifying that, and the AU per se, they are looking at what can we benefit from you as well. Can you give us a better deal than what is on the table? And of course, you do have quite a number of critics that will be looking at this closely. Now, remember, all throughout this week, we will be, of course, hitting back and really looking at this in the wake of what happened in Chinatown, the need for protectionism, and the fact that Uganda is not really very keen on the protectionism part of it. When you get to compare, of course, to Tanzania and, of course, to our neighbors, Kenya, Uganda seems to be taking more or less a stance. And just like our leader mentioned, the fixation right now is on attracting as much investment as possible. But at the cost of what? We will be looking at that as well and inviting some stakeholders to come and give us some insight. For now, let's take a short break and we will be back at the top of the hour.
Smart 24, driving business.
Turn your house into the GoTV Kids Club. Your GoTV package is your ticket to entry, and there's plenty for everyone. Discover new places, play along with wacky characters, and learn fun facts and essential skills. So get and stay connected to GoTV for 24-hour access to the GoTV Kids Club at home and on the go with GoTV Stream. GoTV. Love it.
Jordan. When it comes to classwork, Jordan is magic. Jordan shines. Jordan makes his peers better. Jordan is a true leader. White Star Magic family. Be a leader. Be magic.
You used to tell me that I don't make you happy. All that time you would be complaining. I'll call you every day, yeah yo, baby don't know.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100*21# and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Oli mukyala munna bizinesi era oyagala bizinesi yeekulaakulane. Gavumenti ya Uganda ekuleetedde ssente za Grow era nga weewola okuva ku bukadde buna okutuuka ku bukadde 2 n'osasula mu bbanga lya myaka 2 ate nga gw'asasula mu budde olinna mukisa ddala. Eri abakyala abanoonyi b'obubuddamu nammwe abaliko obulemu enteekateeka eno egenda kubakolako mu ngeri ey'enjawulo. Okumanya ebisingawo tuukirira Post Bank, Equity Bank, DFCO, Centenary Bank, Finance Trust Bank ne Stanbic Bank oba genda ku mukutu gwaffe ogwa www.grow.go.ug oba okujja ku ofiisi za PSFU ku Kyaddondo Road e Nakasero ku kizimbe kya Trust Tower omwaliiro ogusooka oba okuweereza obubaka bwa WhatsApp ku nooti 762 3 nooti 4961. Omukisa guno gw'abakyala bonna okwetooloola eggwanga era ng'enteekateeka ya Grow evujjirirwa banka y'ensi yonna n'eteekebwa mu nkola minisitule y'ekikula ky'abantu ne Private Sector Foundation Uganda.
Grow, generating growth opportunities and productivity for women enterprises.
Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome back. This is one of my favorite times, the top of the hour, where we do have the inspiration as well as the business quotes coming in. Now, to me, what really matters for me during this time is that we are not in isolation. We do have, if we reflect from those that have made it in business before us, we do realize that they have gone through a couple of challenges. We did have, of course, quite something coming in from different Nigerian entrepreneurs as well as Ugandan entrepreneurs who do coming up and saying, you could see me wherever I am, and just think what should go on in your mind is I have worked hard for it. So let us have our business quote, our daily inspiration and business quote, and then we can ruminate as well. Business quote coming up next. indeed, what do you promise? Do not overpromise, do not underpromise. It is very crucial to listen to your customers. Now remember, the customer or the client preferences and tastes continuously change every single day. There are quite a number of different tests that are coming up. And right now it is more or less it's a global market. It's a global market out there. And you do have this infiltration of different global tests coming into, of course, into the Ugandan scene. And then, of course, you do have different Ugandan selling. Can you be able to give me, as if you can't give me this particular product as good as it is, can it be something nearer to that within the best time possible and within the best packaging as possible, and of course accompanied by the best price? You do have quite a number of sessions being done and more assertive clients. So how do you balance it out as a business, as a person in business? How do you, even after listening to your client, how do you balance it out? We have had, of course, a number of stories coming in from the different business personalities that we have spoken to here at Smart 24 TV. And when it comes down to the women in business, or the men in business per se, within the decoration business in Uganda, they will tell you that, we did talk to one of them, and they said it is very, very difficult. Sometimes what you say to a customer, to a client that walks into your stall or your shop, will either bring in more customers or keep you out of business for literally the entire month. Because what happens is that they will come up and give you an image and say, I want my wedding to be like this, I want the decor to be exactly like this. And they're giving you, they cannot match up with the price, and you don't even have most of those decorations because it takes a while to bring them in. So what do? Do you overpromise or do you underpromise? If you underpromise, you shoot yourself in the foot when it comes to decoration business in Uganda. So you always have to look for the best way in which you can be as realistic as possible, or you lose making a loss every now and then. And of course, you have to balance it out as well. If I overpromise, then there is a chance, of course, that there will be a very disappointed client at the end of it all. And then if I underpromise, of course, then I may rise out better, but then still a disgruntled and disappointed client, because they will look at other quotes here and there every now and then. Now, you do, of course, know our Ugandans and how very particular we can be every now and then, especially in moving. They call it the stall jumping. You are moving from one stall to another, from one service provider to another, and then, of course, by the time you get down to that particular service provider who is within your price range, your price bracket, you have more or less thought about what you want. So be very cautious, persons in business, women in business, men in business, be very, very cautious. Do not underpromise, do not overpromise. But it is very crucial as well to listen to your clients. So be able to balance, even as you listen to your clients. Please work out the language very well. Look at ways in which you do not shoot yourself in the foot, and of course look at ways in which you can keep your different clients happier. That is our inspiration for the day. Now remember, as we met this particular time, we did bring to you different snippets of Aliko Dangote's time and different upheavals when it came to some of his facilities in regards to oil. But remember, we have brought you quite a number of business quotes coming in from Aliko Dangote, and he has been consistently positive about overcoming challenges. He has been consistently positive about working out something and making sure that you are resilient and making sure that you're able to go through this time. So when this particular time, in the last couple of weeks back, when we were giving you these latest, of course, details about him, not even just moving from first place as Africa's richest to second place, being taken on by another South African magnate. The reality about it, what was going on through our minds here on Smart Beans Business, is the fact that he has prepared himself to be resilient, to go through challenges, and he knows for sure that no matter how difficult the situation comes, he will run over it and come out shining. So please set your day. Today is Monday, the 16th September 2024. Set your day. You are not alone. You are not isolated. This is tips coming from Smart Means Business. We are live here, Smart 24 TV, and we are driving business. We need to get you up and running wherever you are. Please get onto our social media pages. You can find us on X, Facebook, as well as YouTube. Let us know what is working for you within your business. Let us know where you would want encouragement here or linkages. We are very keen as well on linkages. What topical or thematic area would you want us to cover? It is very, very crucial for us to know what you are thinking. You can find us there, of course, as Smart24 TV Official or Smart24 TV as one word. Now let's dive straight into the topical discussion for today, the undertone of this conversation. Of course, children are getting back into schools, and then we had talked about the fact that there should be, it had been posited a couple of years back, talked about, especially in the wake of the of the COVID-19 pandemic, whereby at school reopenings, with all the challenges of pushing kids back into school, and then they get back there, and then later on, you know, a decree is made, and the president comes back and then shuts down. Most of the schools actually had quite a rough period, and we did have quite a number of schools that closed during that time, especially because of the bank loans. Now remember, for those that could be able to make out something with the loan providers, of course, with their bankers, we did see quite a number of properties going up for sale, especially schools, and going at ridiculous prices. It was such a sad moment. But for those schools that managed to weather through that, of course, it doesn't even not talk about the teachers, the plight of the especially private teachers that suffered during that time. And those are the teachers that preferred not to go back. You cannot tell those teachers who suffered during that time, the ones that relocated back into the villages, you cannot tell them right now to get back into teaching. I have had conversations with some of the teachers, and they will tell you blatantly, I cannot go back. You did have us raise some insight here where we're talking about some of the teachers that actually went straight into boda boda business and said, this is what works. The monies that I get from boda boda is far more than what I'm being paid for, peanuts, by the school where I'm working. I love to teach, but this teaching does not give me, does not help me live, does not help my children get into school, does not help me feed my children, unfortunately. And it is based on such rules that even right now there is still a gap when it comes to schools. We did have different surveys that we did here at Smart24 TV, and we did talk to a couple of school owners, especially last year, coming in, and they told us quite a number of things. Even right now, still at the beginning of this year, you did have quite a number of school owners, directors, tell us and tell us that, you know, the teacher numbers are still very, very low. The teachers that got out there and started boda business, got into different businesses, realized, you know what, there's some more money that can be made from this, and they are hooked to the business. You cannot get that teacher out of that business and take them back into the classroom with this dust and chalk. But the reality about it is that never were they felt such as when was their importance felt, such as during the lockdown and of course during the reopening, no matter how trivialized the teaching profession is these days. Let's look at it in as a kaleidoscope, more or less. When you look at the fact that long time ago, if you had those stories in the early 60s, in the early 70s, 1970s, you will realize that the teaching profession was really something very big. And up to now, those were the persons that they would tell you, any person right now in their 40s, in their 50s, 60s, will tell you that, to me, the role models during that time was this man who was a teacher or this woman who was a teacher. They were the best dressed. They were the cleanest compounds within the communities. It was more or less a calling. Yes, it was a calling, and it was very worthwhile. It was quite repaying, but more or less from the emotional aspect, psychological aspect, and it did bring in quite some status within the community, as well as some money, some bread coming in. But you do have more or less a change in the dynamics when it comes to the teaching profession. You did have, of course, a recent directive that came in trying to boost. The ethos behind it was practical, ensuring that the science subjects, due to where the vision is for Uganda, you have more and more scientists willing to push for more sciences and more scientists. And of course that meant that you did have an increase in the salary of science teachers, but this came at a detriment, quite demotivational for the arts teachers. And of course you have had the president come out every now and then when he has been talking, and he has been thwarted as well and critiqued for this, because you do have quite, even in the face of wanting to push for sciences and moving on, of course you do have some that were put out in bad taste, coming him and mentioning that sometimes, of course, the arts are irrelevant and not much needed, but then the arts are also still relevant. The critics came out and said it is still relevant no matter what you think, because whether it is behavior studies, whether it is anything to do with laws and all that, it is very necessary. But of course, looking at the fact that there was a boost when it came down to the teacher pay for sciences, science teachers, you do have, of course, that, and it is still an area of contention. You still have their union still coming up in arms and saying, let this gap be addressed, because the reality about it is that that gap is, the pay gap is still too wide. It is too wide. Now, of course, the gender issue comes into play, with different gender activists coming into play in regards to the fact that most of the persons who are science-inclined, science teachers, who were being recipients, actually, who are recipients or beneficiaries of some of these pay increases, of course, are men. And of course, you do have the imbalance, knowing that the women are fewer within this particular docket, and so did not necessarily benefit entirely from this. Now, where do they fall? The women, of course, in most cases, female teachers are the ones that normally, and of course the narrative is changing, but we are still looking at the statistics, of course, knowing that the majority of science teachers, the majority of different arts teachers, of course, are women. And then when it comes down to the science teachers, most of them science-inclined, math and math and chemistry, biology, those ones in most cases predominantly male. So that meant in one way or another that even with this coming out into play, that still the men were given almost 100 times more pay than the women, averagely, looking at the different statistics. Of course, this looks at, when we're looking at breaking down the different implications when it comes to gender, this looks at the fact that when you do something like that and you're looking more or less at the arts teachers, what is the direct implication to the family? What is the direct implication to the different communities? Because when we look at it from the broader stance, we get to see, of course, that when you have a woman in position, when you have her highly paid, highly remunerated, this, of course, directly impacts upon the health, upon the finances of the family, upon the health of the children, upon, of course, upon different aspects all across the chain and all across this thread of thought. But of course, we do not negate the fact that this money was supposed to be looked at more or less as in use. It is still useful. It is very necessary. When we break it down on the gender component, we do find, of course, that there is quite a lot that was done to deter and to bring backwardness back into the gender aspect. We will have someone come in, of course, and looking back onto that particular train of thought, gender component, especially in the wake of the fact that schools have reopened officially. Schools have reopened. The majority of teachers that are arts are women, and the majority of teachers that are science inclined are male, still in our Uganda today. And of course, we do have the particular decree that happened in regards to the pay for science teachers. How did it exclude the female teachers? when it comes down to that. We have, of course, had quite some creativity, innovation going on. You did have a number of critics come in and say, why am I learning about Saskatchewan and the Canadian prairies? For what reason, sincerely? As having learned about the Canadian prairies, I'm baffled. I wonder, why did I learn about that wheat? Why? And the combined harvesters, for what reason? So this brought down, and good enough, this cry definitely was brought about on a different avenue, and it was listened to with an uptake, right, an increase in vocational skilling. This has been drummed. The drumming is still going on, but of course the ways in which it is being implemented, you do have sometimes some criticism, of course, coming in regards to that. This week we will have someone, of course, coming in regards to education, in regards to gender, in regards to how some of these can be fine-tuned. Let us know, are you a teacher, and how is it working for you? Have you left your profession, and why? Did you move away from that? Did you move away from the teaching profession? Do you miss it? Sometimes they do say as well, the different teachers out there, for those that have stuck on, really we applaud you here. We give you kudos coming, and we honor you for all the teachers that have held on, even amidst all these challenges as this term opens. And we do say thank you so much for hanging in there. And not only just the thank yous in play, but the teachers union and all those key stakeholders, can you do something about the pay, especially for the arts teachers who were left behind? And of course, looking at the gender component within this. Can you do something? Can there be a louder cry to have this pay gap rectified, of course, in view of the different components, of course, into play? Now, of course, if you are a teacher and you left your profession due to the difficulties, especially those within the private, teaching within the private schools, what can be done? There must be something that can be done. We did hear quite a number of sad stories coming in from them. What has been done so far to the effect? And who is meant to look at some of these things? We do know that you do have the tutors, you do have the inspectors moving around in different schools to still make sure that there is compliance to standards. But we also do know that quite a number of them are challenged logistically because they don't have fuel, so they can't reach out as many times as possible as intended. We do know that the ministry still suffers these shortages. But for the teachers who are out there still holding on and making sure that they push this country in the right direction with the children protected within the school brackets and within the school compounds, what is being done to ensure that these teachers are okay, that these teachers do not suffer as much as they did during the time? We did have a report during that time, of course, of teachers, you know, carrying and being thrown out of the houses, unable to feed their families, especially for the private schools. You do still have reports right now of teachers that go even 6 months unpaid within the different the different private schools, unpaid. They still go on 3 months unpaid. And sometimes they're being paid peanuts, and not only are they being paid peanuts, they're not even paid on time. Who is meant to look at some of these ways and see that there is speedy rectification and address of some of these gaps? Who is meant to handle this docket better? We do, of course, know that with all the different cases of child abuse, all the different cases of mental health degradation that came out during the post-pandemic, when schools, the pandemic time, when schools were closed, and of course the child protection violations that went on during that time, we do know how important schools are right now. So to make sure that the schools run well and to make sure that the staff, the teachers, are taken care of, can these gaps be addressed? We will be talking about some of these issues all throughout this week as an undertone for this particular conversation and more conversations this week. We will, of course, have different stakeholders in addition to a couple of other things. But please join us from 9 to 10 as we take on our visitor, our host, our guest coming in on set to give us another more or less insight into the performance and analysis of the performance of agricultural financing in Uganda. Last week, we actually talked about an uptake. How is it with the uptake of agricultural financing in Uganda? Why is it that there are a couple of different gaps when it comes to agricultural financing? Why is it that people did not even know much about this COVID recovery fund that was there? And even for those that tried to reach out for these, they were thwarted. And even for the others that you get to hear about that were able to tap into this, only just a few notables were able to tap into this. And this always goes as well for the agricultural financing. We would want to have more and more insight. So please join us from 9 to 10 as we look at the performance of agricultural financing in Uganda. And make sure you do let us know. Of course, if you do have a question, we will reply. We will look at it in detail right here at Smart 24 TV. Let us know what you think. You can find us as well on social media pages. You can find us on X, on Facebook, as well as YouTube, Smart 24 TV official, and Smart 24 TV as one word. Let us know what your opinion is, what your question is for our guests between 9 to 10. Now remember, we are always here with you from Monday to Friday, same time starting 7 a.m. But for now, let me take a short break. I'll be right back with sports and entertainment.